It's that time, Thursday lunchtime, in his struts. Spencer Oliver is in our midst, in our new studio on the 17th floor of the News Building, and he's very much part of the fabric of this place. Spencer, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jim. Good afternoon, Simon.
Oh, you're not getting...
Good afternoon, Simon.
From Simon. Even though Simon is sitting right beside Spencer, for some reason, is there any reason you're not acknowledging your pal?
I've already spoken to him.
Oh, you've already spoken to him, I see. All right, you do know we're live at the moment. Good afternoon, Spencer, might have sufficed, but it didn't come.
I've never understood all that. You know, when you sit beside a show, before the show, and you walk in the studio and you've never spoken to one another before.
Yeah.
Get on with entertaining the public. Not
Is that why go on here at 10, you come in about 10 past?
Correct, yeah.
Just
so I can avoid all that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got this again. Anyway, Spencer, good afternoon to you. I'll say that, and it is indeed good to see you. We are going to be speaking in the next hour, not least to Spencer and to Simon, about matters in the world of boxing. David Adelaye will join us, of course. Daniel Dubois, you're going to be hearing an exclusive interview with Daniel. I spoke to Daniel just before we came on air. You don't want to miss that, but past the hour for that. And of course, we talk about the man who's written all the headlines in the last few days, Moses Itauma, out in Saudi Arabia, and he did a job on Dillian Whyte, did he not? We'll speak to Francis Warren, who is Moses' manager. He's going to join us live in just a second. But Itauma, thrilled to have seen off Whyte in just one round.
What Ben was telling me what to do for the first maybe 2-3 minutes, I saw he was doing exactly what Ben telling me to do, but it's just, you know, the fight nerves, whatnot kicked in. And then after maybe like the first minute, I was like, okay, cool. I keep seeing this happen. I can't miss it. So, yeah, man, executed the game plan. It's bigger and better, man. What's next? I'm 20-year-old. I'm only 20-year-old. I've got maybe 10, 15 years left in this career. So, man, there's going to be a lot of this face around. So, I'm just happy to be able to put a performance on for you guys.
Final one, simple question. Will you be a world champion in 2026?
Belt to ass. Come on, man. Listen, if I get the opportunity, 100%. 100%.
Okay, son of Frank, Francis Warren, who is Moses Itauma's manager. Francis joins us live on the show this lunchtime. Good afternoon to you, Francis. What is next for him? Before we get to that, did you expect him to do such a demolition job on Dillian Whyte?
No, gents. I think expect is the wrong word, but I knew he was capable of it. You know, but I talked to obviously Ben, his coach Ben and Lee throughout the week, and spoke to Moses, and they knew that if they executed a game plan, which they did, he's more than capable of taking anybody out. You know, in the early rounds. But I think like I said, expect is the wrong word, but definitely knew he was capable of doing that.
And what's next? That's the burning question, Francis.
Well, there's a list, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, I've gone through it, and you know, we've decided. You know, Moses decided to go on holiday this week and for a well-deserved break, and we're going to sit down next week with the training team, the promotional team, and the management team, and hear what Moses wants to do. I think it's the most important thing is where he feels he's at. But there's some very exciting fights out there to be made, and this isn't about calling people out at this stage. This is about analysing who we feel is the right move for Moses at this time. But as he said, after his fight on Saturday, if he gets the knock for a world title, he'll open the door, and I don't doubt that he'll want to do that. Maybe not next, but within the next 12 months, certainly.
Well, Francis, a lot depends on what happens with Oleksandr Usyk with that WBO title. I know he's got an extension on that right now, but if he does relinquish that title, Moses is number one. You know, we've got Joseph Parker there, who's the interim champion, so that's a fight that could materialise depending on what Joseph Parker wants to do next. And there's Filip Hrgovic hanging around as well, so there is a lot of options, but that world title could come sooner rather than later, couldn't it? Because I think speaking to yourself and speaking to your father as well, if you get Joseph Parker or you get Filip Hrgovic and that WBO title's on the line, then surely you have to take that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, again, this isn't about being disrespectful to anybody. These guys, Joe Parker's a fantastic servant to boxing, and he's been there for he's earned his right to be up there with some fantastic wins. But Moses is a special talent, and I think the recognition he's getting is because of that special talent that he is at number one with the WBO. I can't imagine if Joe gets elevated to full champion that he'll give Moses a voluntary. I think it will have to be ordered by the WBO, which would probably push it into next year. I do love the Hrgovic fight. I think that's a good fight for Moses to make that next step up onto that world level. Filip's been there and done it. But there's some other names out there. I think Caballero is probably one that has been mentioned a few times. Michael Hunter, Jared Anderson, and you've also got Pulev, within the WBA who holds a version of a world title. So there are names out there. We're certainly not beholden to anybody, and we're waiting around for anybody. People will be offered the fight. He'll fight in December again this year, and then it'll be 2-3 fights a year from here on out. We're going to keep him nice and busy. But I think this is very important. This next step. Nobody wants to get this one wrong because he is a special talent, but he is only 20. So it will be a collective decision and one that's based on his best interests.
Francis, after the fight, your dad, who knows a few things about the world of boxing, said he's the best young fighter at this age than any other fighter I have been involved with. Simon, Frank rates him that highly. Do you?
I mean, I think what Frank and Francis have done with Moses' career has been brilliant, but they do it most of the time with most of their fighters. They curate and create the best opportunities. They match them perfectly, and they build up the reputation. Moses' reputation is very difficult to manage because the expectation levels are so high of him now that it's almost, he's at a stage where people are expecting him to go into the ring and knock people out, which he himself was talking about prior to the fight, wasn't he, Moses, when he was talking to the media? The questions asked last week, which Francis will be very pleased were answered, was how does he manage himself on the big stage where he is the headline act? He's got to deal with a whole direct range of different burdens upon him, and he came through it in flying colours. Now, whatever I may think about Dillian Whyte's performance, it doesn't detract from Moses Itauma. I love the fact that they're thinking along the lines of Hrgovic. I'm not interested in seeing him against Pulev. I think Pulev is done. He's an old man. I'm not interested in seeing him against Jared Anderson. I'm not interested in seeing him against Michael Hunter. But I am very interested in seeing him against someone like Filip Hrgovic. So I think that's a fascinating thought process because Hrgovic is, for me, a live one. Despite what Daniel Dubois did to him, he's a live one, Spence, right?
Totally agree, and I think that it's a very winnable fight for Moses, and it's a guy, most importantly, that will give him the rounds that he needs, because that's all the talk we're talking about now is, Moses is telling me, yeah, he's going for everyone, but he needs to get those rounds. You go, well, listen, they're putting them people in front of him to give him those rounds, but unfortunately, they can't get through the rounds.
Francis, you just made a point, and I'm sure you know it better than I do, that if, as people think will happen, Francis, that Usyk will vacate the WBO, is it automatically that Joe Parker is elevated to the champion, or does he have to fight for the belt?
He's automatically elevated to full world champion, that's why I said he's more than likely to want a voluntary defense.
Right, that's why I was questioning, because Joe Parker, when he was in the studio the other day, was very cavalier, and we all like Joe, and we all rate him, and he's in your stable as well. Was very cavalier about he would absolutely take the Itauma fight. What you're saying is, well, if he's elevated to the world title holder, he would want to do what he wants to do first, rather than being potentially put in with what people consider to be the most dangerous fighter in heavyweight boxing right now.
Even Joe Parker, I mean, Queen's promote Joseph. So if when that fight is made, it's going to be easier than should he be with another promoter. But if I'm managing Joe Parker, and I don't, and he's with Spencer, and but I would be advising him to make a few quid before putting it all on the line against a 20-year-old guy coming through the ranks. However, if Joe feels confident enough to be able to say, right, I'm full champion, I'll take on the number one, we're all ears. I think it's just there's no rush here for anybody. We've all got time on our side. Like as I said, it's a lot easier to make these fights when all the guys are under the same promotional banner. George, my father, has done an amazing job curating, a heavyweight roster that makes all these guys, gives all these guys the capability to be able to go and fight each other. And where a loss doesn't mean the end of the world for you. It's
Francis,
Filip Hrgovic now is back. He's flying high again. He talks about it, as an elite.
Francis, is there any feeling, and I asked this question with all due respect, that questions have yet to be asked of Moses? Because despite the name on the roster, and I know you won't potentially agree with this, that the Dillian Whyte that turned into that ring was not the Dillian Whyte that we saw 3 or 4 years ago. Moses did his job and knocked him out in one round. There's no dispute that he's a world-class operator. Is there any debate about needing to learn more before we see him? Because obviously there was people calling him out to fight Usyk next, and there's a school of thought, I think, that he shouldn't be near Usyk at this time. He's still developing as a fighter, and there's still levels that Moses has to fight at before he goes in with Usyk. How do you feel about that sort of observation?
I think, Jimmy, sorry, Simon, it's an interesting one, because if we went and sort of, just made the fights that you just said that, don't particularly, float your boat with a Hunter at Anderson, even like a Jermaine Franklin, with the ambition of getting rounds in, he's not going to get rounds against those guys.
No,
I think he's streaks above them already.
Indeed.
And so therefore you move into that next sort of, I mean, if you call the elites of Caballero, Usyk, Joe Parker, they're the guys at the top of the tree. And then you have got this sort of A-star group of world-class fighters. That I think that's where Moses sits in now. It would be nice to see him, in with a Filip Hrgovic. And I'm not, this isn't calling people out. I'm going to make that clear. Picolis, all those sort of guys. Zangs, if there are opportunity to go and learn, that's the scary thing. He'd be learning on the job against these guys. And if he comes through those, then you're really talking, you're talking business. But what we won't be doing is rushing anything.
I think the only way this young man's going to get any rounds is when he becomes world champion. That's where I see it with him. There's talk about, him getting the rounds against Hrgovic.
Hrgovic will give us some rounds, won't he?
Yeah, but will he?
Do you think Hrgovic will give us some rounds?
Hrgovic cuts like rice paper, and Moses is very quick, very sharp, and that fight could be over very quickly. That is the reality of it.
Badly, didn't it? And that may be why we can't make the Hrgovic fight next, is because that cut. I mean, I think if he closed his eye, he could still see through it. It was it was a bad cut, and it's the second time it's opened up, in the last three fights. So would he give him rounds? I would have. I would expect. I know what Moses is capable of doing to him, but also Filip's a seasoned pro and a seasoned world-class operator who knows how to survive. He saw that against Daniel. Daniel couldn't, he survived an onslaught from Daniel, and it was the cut that finally, broke the camel's back.
Okay. Francis, good of you to join us in what is a pretty busy schedule that you're having these days. Thank you so much, Francis Warren, with us live this lunchtime. When we come back after this, we're going to hear from a man who may end up in the ring at some stage with Moses Itauma, and he is Daniel Dubois, an exclusive with him on the way. Thursday lunchtime, that means we're talking boxing, and it's becoming more and more apparent to me that I think because of Spencer, because of Simon, all the big names in the world of boxing want to join us during this hour. David Adelaye is one of those. He'll be joining us live. You heard from Francis Warren just a short time ago. Just before we came on air this morning, Daniel Dubois decided he wanted to speak to us here at talkSPORT. He wanted to speak to myself, knowing that Simon was with me and knowing that Spencer was as well. And he wanted to speak in some detail regarding the events in recent days when it was announced that Daniel would be changing trainer, no longer with Don Charles, and speak about what he's been up to since that defeat in mid-July at the hands of Oleksandr Usyk. And it was a crushing defeat. So here is Daniel Dubois. And I said to him first off, what have you been up to since the Usyk loss?
Just reflecting back on everything and getting ready for the next step now. I still got plenty to give, but it's just been time of reflection.
It was a crushing defeat. I mean, you've thought long and hard, have you, about why it went so wrong?
I come up against one of the best in the world and a southpaw on top of that. I could have done better, but this is how it goes sometimes. And I don't feel deflated or defeated in myself. I need to learn and learn about myself and, improve myself.
So, Daniel, now you've split from your trainer, Don Charles. Was that your decision?
Yeah, 100%. Just thinking, looking back, Don's been great for me. We won a world title together, but I'm just thinking about moving forward and how I can improve myself. And, that was my decision.
Can a new trainer get more out of you?
I hope so. I'm willing to give everything I've got, everything I've got left now, this stage of my career, and become two-time heavyweight champion of the world. That's my goal. I'm willing to do anything to get to that.
And is that new man Tony Sims, Daniel?
I can't say for now, to be honest. I can't say for now. And I need to sit down and talk with my team first properly about everything, how the structure is going to be. But there will be an announcement soon on that, for sure.
And you've got a new manager in Sam Jones. What do you think he can bring to you?
He does a lot of work behind the scenes, as I've seen myself. He's not just a big mouth. He does a lot of work behind the scenes for you as well, and he talks up for you. So, and moving forward, a sort of new beginning for me. So that's all part of it, yeah.
Daniel, a lot was made of this pre-fight party, before AJ and before Usyk. Yeah. It was also called a gathering. Were you opposed to that happening?
No, it worked the first time with AJ and things like that. But I don't even want to talk on that too much, that's not why anything went wrong in the fight. I look to myself and look what I could have done better and things like that. But yeah, it worked the first time with AJ, so it's a whole new beginning for me moving forward now. What I've got to change and get right.
Your dad's still a big influence on you. How involved is he? I mean, some might say he's too involved. No,
I don't think he's too involved. I think he's looking out for me. He's looking out for my best interest and moving forward. I'm learning as well, and I'm just deciding really what direction we're going to go in for this next step.
Who is next? Is Moses Itauma on the horizon?
All the guys in the heavyweight division, yeah, they're all the guy, especially the one who has the belts, and if the belts fragment or whatever stuff like that can happen. Whatever way I can become two-time heavyweight champion. That's where I'm going.
Do you think you would beat Itauma?
Listen, first off, I just need to get everything right. Once I'm right, 100% right, whoever I land on, I can take him out. And, just covering up little gaps in my defence and things like that. I'm going to be the full article when I come back.
That was Daniel Dubois speaking to me just before we came on air this very morning, about 9:45 or so. What's your take on that, Spencer? I noticed you and Simon often chat when we listen to some audio together, and it's being played out to our audience. Today you didn't. You just listened. What do you make of what you heard from Dubois?
He's grown as a person, for sure. I think Don Charles was, very important with that. He helped him grow as a person, not just as a fighter. They had 5 fights together, winning 3, only losing 2 to Oleksandr Usyk back in 2023 in Poland, and then obviously last time out. I totally understand where Daniel's coming from. He wants to grow as a fighter as well. And if you look historically, this will be his 5th trainer, and we do believe that is Tony Sims. Going back to Martin Bowles, who was his first trainer, and he had a little spell with Mark Tibbs, also with Don Charles as well. Shane McGuigan was in there now. And so what he does is he moves around because he wants to grow as a fighter, not just Don Charles has helped him grow as a person. The physicalities were always there. I understand it in many ways from Daniel Dubois, and Don Charles had a good conversation with him last night, and he said, look, the split, there was no bad blood between us two. Daniel's chose to move on. That's what he does. And that's pretty much where they're at. So look, he's a young man still. He's 27 years of age. A loss at this level doesn't determine your career or where you're at right now. Daniel will still learn, he will still grow, and will still play a part in this heavyweight division. Remember, Moses Itauma, who's hot on everyone's lips at the moment, he needs dance partners. He needs other guys in the division. And Daniel, that's an interesting fight still.
He didn't duck any questions, Simon. We talked about the so-called parties, the gatherings. Yeah. Before he fought AJ on the day, there was a whole bunch of people that he knew, and then he went off to the fight and did a job on AJ. The same thing before he fought against Usyk. Same bunch of people. A gathering, but Usyk did a job on him. But he's not using that as any kind of form of excuse, and he addressed it. He says his father, Stan Dubois, yes, he's a big influence on him, but he's not too much of an influence, and he's looking out my best interests. I mean, this is Daniel's coming back with everything.
I would expect him to say that. I mean, I think there's different opinions, and of course, what Daniel and his father say is probably more prevalent than everyone else, but I'm pretty confident that the gathering that he had for the AJ fight was nowhere near the gathering that he had in relation to the Usyk fight. AJ fight and Usyk fights are two different fighters, two different dynamics. Just because something worked once doesn't mean it's going to work again. And also the distractions around it, and they're not ideal preparation. He came up against. There's only so many times he'll come up against Oleksandr Usyk. There's only one Oleksandr Usyk. So there's a potential that Daniel Dubois can come again, and depending on who he fights and who he fights for a world title when they do eventually get broken up, or Usyk retires because he's 27. The interesting thing will be, because when we were talking on Monday, Paul Smith's very frank, and he's obviously a trainer and a fighter of some significant repute. And I asked him about his views on Daniel's challenges and the circumstances that surround him, and his father's influence. And Paul was quite unequivocal, wasn't he, Spence? He think one of the things he thought was the difficulty with Daniel is there's a lack of heart. Now, it's difficult for me to say that, having never been in the ring, but only a fighter can really say it with any integrity. And he believes that there's a missing gene that when it gets tough, really tough, only kind of tough that only these fighters can know about, not the people that opine on it. There is some that do and some that don't. And some that can really decide that they've got the gene to bite down. And he makes the point that he walked across the ring against Usyk, got up and walked across the ring. He stopped in the ninth round to a jab and took a knee. He got stopped against Joe Joyce by taking the knee himself. It's in Daniel. And no matter which coach you put in front of him, you're not going to coach that into him.
I think it's fair to say that different fighters have a different pain threshold. And that's where you're at there. You use that word when you say that you hear people saying, oh, he spewed that one or he bottled it and all that. That's the wrong terminology. You go, it's just that a fighter recognises when he's had enough. And that is at a different level. You look at fighters like Gennady Golovkin and Canelo and all those sort of guys. They can bite down. They can go to a different... And that's why they become elite superstars of the sport. But, different fighters, different pain thresholds. Yeah. That's pretty much where...
And he said during that chat, Spencer, and you heard him, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to work on a number of things. In other words, will that lead him going to another level, the level he needs to get to?
Well, he's done it before, hasn't he? We saw that with Don Charles. Like he went with Don Charles just before the first Oleksandr Usyk loss, and he went to Don Charles, and that didn't happen. And then he grew as a fighter. We saw the Hrgovic fight, and we saw the Baby Miller fight, and you saw the improvements all the time. And
so there's still more to come from him.
At 27 years of age, quite possibly there is still more to come for sure.
Do you doubt there is?
No, I think that quite possibly there is more to come. We won't know that until he teams up with the new trainer. That's sort of how fighters operate, and Daniel's still very much, and I think that is evident, he's still very much on the learning curve, not just as a fighter, but as a human being as well.
Depends who's asking the questions of him. I don't mean literally. I don't mean verbally. I mean literally in the ring. If you put him into a fight with Moses Itauma in 18 months' time, and Moses Itauma at the top of his game, he'll be asked the questions that other people won't ask him. So if he goes into a fight with Joe Parker, he might not be asked the same questions that he was asked of by Usyk, so he doesn't get that challenge that we believe, or is believed of him, the psychological or physical reaction to moments of adversity is something that Daniel can't quite overcome. And my understanding of talking to these guys, you can't coach that into somebody. Mm-hmm. It's either there or it's not. No matter how much technical ability you give them, when it comes to that moment when you're staring into the abyss, you've either got it or you haven't got it.
Yeah. David Adelaye certainly was asked a few questions by Filip Hrgovic. David Adelaye out in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, put up a valiant performance, but it was Hrgovic who came out on top. Adelaye will be joining us live at the other side of 12:30. We're live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
If you're watching on YouTube on your smart TV and you're looking at a wide shot, which is a television term, Spencer Oliver has jumped out of that seat and vaulted over to this one. And Simon is sitting there with a seat vacant to his left. That seat will be filled very shortly by David Adelaye, who is somewhere between floors 1 and 17. Once he gets to the 17th floor, Spencer, he will come in through that door and sit beside you, Simon, if you're agreeable to that, Mr. Jordan.
I am. Be nice to see David.
And he says it'll be nice to see you. He didn't, but anyway. Here's the thing, Spencer. Nick Ball, at the weekend there in Saudi Arabia, you watched it. You were on hand to see it. He beat Sam Goodman by unanimous decision. What was your take on it? And what is next for Nick Ball?
I think that Nick Ball was struggling to get into any sort of flow right from the beginning of the opening bells. And that happens with fighters sometimes. It's like you're punching through treacle or whatnot. And you could see that Nick was sort of struggling to work things out. But I think take nothing away from Sam Goodman, who produced a great performance. He was a lot better than what we thought he would be. But Nick done what champions do, and he come through it. He weathered some bad moments in the fight and took control, in those penultimate rounds. And
what should be taken away is the pens for those judges that scored it the way that they scored it. Because to score it the way they scored it, I mean, you listen to the commentary, and I was listening to Andy Lee through the commentary, and there was a real discussion about how close this fight was and how nip and tuck it was. And Nick Ball obviously dug deep in the last couple of rounds to give himself a better outcome. But I think Sam Goodman was really in the fight. And for the judges to have scored the way they did, now, of course, everyone backs out and goes, well, the close rounds could go either which way. But the fact of the matter is, it was never the scorecard that it was. Sam Goodman was a really different opponent, and I think me and Spence gave him credit for, in terms of he was far better than our expectation. And Nick can't put those performances up again. And this is the byproduct of fighting Ronnie Rios, fighting TJ Dahoney, when he's got to fight world-level fighters that are at the top of their games, rather than potentially guys that are being thrown in to make sure that Nick's all right, because he's earned the right to be all right.
Yeah, I think the scorecards were ridiculous. You had 118, 110 with one of the judges. Don't know what he was watching. 117, 111 was way, way too wide again. And I think the other judge that went 115, 113 in Nick's favour,
more like
that was fair.
Absolutely
that was fair, because
Absolutely
we were sitting there at ringside going, well, if one of these rounds is a swing round, this fight could even become a draw.
Absolutely right.
That's where it was. I always thought he won the fight, but I knew it was very tight. It was nip and tuck.
And he got made to look quite one-dimensional.
Well, Spencer, you were sitting ringside as well, as David Adelaye put up a brave performance up against the giant that is the Croatian Filip Hrgovic. But David faced the second loss of his career. It was a unanimous decision defeat against Hrgovic, although David certainly messed him up a bit. Another massive cut in Hrgovic's eye. Anyway, he's still alive and well and is with us to tell the tale. David Adelaye has just joined us here in studio this lunchtime. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, David.
Thank you for having me.
And now the dust is settled, how do you reflect on what took place in Riyadh?
Bitter pill to swallow.
A bitter pill to swallow?
Yeah, it is, because I felt like, obviously, look, the way the fight went, obviously, there's always ifs and buts when you watch the fight back and afterwards, and you always think, I should have just done this, I should have done that. Spencer would know what it's like as well, but I feel obviously when you're in the moment sometimes, and when you see things when you're in there, it's always different to how people see things outside. So
I think, Dave, what my take on it was watching that fight, and you hit him with that jab in the second round that opened up a horrendous cut.
Should have just
finished, and you should have gone for it then.
Finish my dinner. I should have, because I usually finish my dinner. I should have finished it there and then. But sometimes you see it, and because he's had cuts beforehand, so I kind of saw things a bit differently. Whereas I thought, look, he's durable. Let me cut him. I'm gonna make it worse. As the rounds go on, and my inexperience led me to keep throwing like a big shot on that exact same cut. Whereas what I should have been doing was throwing the same shot that caused the cut, rather than trying to land that big bomb. Making it worse.
You said it there, mate. The inexperience let you down there in that fight. And we'll get on to how the fight went later on. And that round 8, by the way, was brilliant. But you showed a lot of character in there yourself. You're still young, and you will learn and come back from that. But the inexperience was the fight that cost you the victory, because after round 2, you have to go for it a little bit here, because you're one shot away from this fight ending, because the referee, the doctor, they were all looking at it, but you allowed him the space and allowed him to get into a rhythm and take the fight away from you. And then before you know it, you're boxing more defensive, which is not your style.
It's not my style, and at the same time, I realised that he got a bit panicky after I cut him. So in my head, my thought process was, look, he's panicking and he's throwing bombs. So I tucked up. I could take the shots, and I said he's going to tire out, and he's going to allow me to just tee off on him in the later rounds. But them shots there, sometimes I got a lot of shots to the back of the head and stuff. They can kind of take its toll. So, that's basically just didn't play in my favour.
I mean, round 8, David, can you take us through it? Coming up off the canvas.
I got hit with a shot. And it's funny because I never go over. And I never go over. I ended up going over against Ward, ended up going over against Hrgovic. So it was killing, man. Like, I never go over. I'm never been stopped to my amateur career, never got dropped, nothing like that. So obviously it was a hard one. But yeah, I got hit. I got hit before that, actually, and I shot at him, spurred him on, because it psyched me up at the same time. Gone to throw a jab as he's gone to throw his right hand, and they clipped me like, a bit higher behind my head a bit, and went over. I was completely fine though. Stayed down, looked at my corner, do the experience thing there, and your coach knows you more than anyone else. So I look at him, sweet. I get up, and I was fine. And I said, yeah, look, you're trying to come now, so I'm gonna match fire with fire, and then just ended up trading with him.
And it worked for you, mate. It worked for you because he was like swaying around like a willow tree in the wind at times. There, and he was just one shot away, but that was.
He's got a very good chin on him, because I landed some bombs in him, and he's, he still managed to survive it. And it's hard because you sit there and you think to yourself, bloody hell, if I did it in round 3, 4, 5, we wouldn't be in a situation right now, and things would be so much different.
Well, that's precisely. When I found myself watching the fight, disappointed and frustrated with you, I feel like I've got an emotional investment with you because you play in the same paddle tennis club as I do. Apparently, getting free courts. And I'm very fond of Adam, very much so, and I like you. And I was frustrated with it because I think to myself, in the 8th round, you've landed massive shots on him. Some of those shots would have been better landed earlier on in the fight, as you know, because you'd have had more potency. If you're getting off the floor trying to knock somebody out, you've got less venom in your punches. And it almost felt to me that you missed an opportunity. I was listening to Adam in the corner, and Adam was saying to you, you're letting him have his way. You're letting him do what he wants. And that, to me, is like a psychological approach, without being too clever, because I've never done what you've done. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm looking at it going, how deep is the belief? And then I'm hearing things like you after the fight, coming back for the main event, and you're very happy and very content.
Yeah, I saw something like that. Someone said that.
That can't be right, David. You can't be happy and content with a defeat, because a defeat is a defeat.
Simple as that, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. But it's a tough reality, truth of the matter, because look, I went to bed the next day and I woke up in the middle of the night. I was up 3, 4, 5 in the morning, like replaying scenarios in my back of my mind, like, damn, I should have just did this.
Did you go into that fight really thinking that you were going to win this fight? Or did you go into that fight thinking, I'm glad to be here, this is a big opportunity for me?
No way, because at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, I'm not taking the fight. I don't think I'm going to win at the end of the day. Simple as that. And believe it or not, I know I can knock out any heavyweight. I've got the power to do so. I've got the skill set to do so. So I go into that fight knowing for what I'm going to win. I just think where my problem was I thought the game plan that I had in my own mind, not the game plan, so to say, but when I seen I've cut him and I'm like, look, he's going to tire out, he's panicking. And I'm just not working in my favour. I looked at it wrong. That was what I should have did was get him out of there.
But Adam must have been saying something to you, mustn't he?
Yeah, but that was an introductory, Simon, into world class and different levels, and that's what it is. Like what you've done is you've mistimed certain situations in that fight that's cost you victory.
Basically. A lot of fighters would panic in them situations, start swinging, they'll gas themselves out after 2, 3 rounds. It allows me to kind of just sit on my.
Is that a worry for you? Because people think that's a worry for you. People think that you worry about gassing yourself.
I'll be honest with you, it did play on my mind at the same time, though.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Why did it play on your mind?
Look, there's no excuses here as well. Look, I had tonsillitis the week leading into it.
I saw you post something like that on the Monday.
Yeah.
You saw a doctor out there?
Tuesday. Yeah. But look, kept under wraps. Frank Warren never knew about it. Nobody knew about it because for the simple fact of, I don't want my opponent to hear about it. Number one. Number two, I've done a tough, grueling camp. Been doing the runs in the gym. So at the same time, I'm not getting pulled out of this fight. I don't want Frank Warren to sit there and say, Dave, look, how you feel? No, I'm a fighting man. I believe in myself at the end of the day. And I know I can fight. So we're knuckling down and we're getting through it. I was on antibiotics. I remember thinking, I told the doctor, I'm not going on these antibiotics no more. They're making me feel a bit more tired than I need to. So I stopped it. So yeah, look.
But that's no excuse.
And there's no excuse.
You're offering
there's
no
excuse. No, no. Hrgovic is a good fighter. He's a world level operator. He is where he is for a reason. I have to give the man his credit and his flowers.
Yeah.
He beat me. At the end of the day. So there's on his end, he did nothing wrong. On my end, I could have just pushed a bit more. So yeah, there's no excuses there. I lost.
Okay.
Like I said to you, it's a bitter pill to swallow. It is.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it because look, at the same time, to explain it to somebody that's obviously never been in that situation is hard. But you can wake up in the middle of the night and you always replay scenarios where you think, damn, I could have did this.
If only.
If only.
Well, I mean, David, the world keeps spinning, and you will be back.
Definitely
the question is with whom. We'll talk about that next. David Adelaye live in the studio with us, and we're live in talkSPORT. We're talking boxing this Thursday at lunchtime. David Adelaye in studio with Spencer, myself and Simon, having tried and failed to overcome the giant that is the Croatian Filip Hrgovic over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia last weekend. Hrgovic, of course, badly cut above the eye, and no doubt another visit to his plastic surgeon, but it was a loss for David Adelaye, and David's coming to terms with that right here in studio with us. Somewhat frustrated, David, that comes over loud and clear. But I mean, even though it's just days after the event, what is next for you? What are you thinking?
Still want to, of course, be involved in big fights or whatnot. You know, if you ask me who I want to fight next, some people call me crazy, but, you know, it's always crazy until it's done, right? So I just leave it for my promotion agent and coach. And whoever they say I'll fight, you guys know I don't shy away from nobody. You know, any fights that I brought forward, I take with open arms.
There's big opportunity out there for you in the stable that you're in. You've got Fabio Wardley, the rematch that could happen. He's world ranked with the WBA. Young Moses. I mean, we got to talk about him. Yeah. And that was a savage performance there. Is that someone that you would, you know,
110%? You know, these are the fights that I would absolutely take with open arms. You know, you got Fabio doing his thing right now. I think he's ranked highly with the WBA.
Number one with the WBA.
You got Moses, obviously, ranked highly with the WBO, doing his thing as well. He put on a good performance over the weekend. So, yeah, I suppose these guys are obviously in a certain position where they're probably going to be fighting for world titles, so they're probably not even thinking about me right now. But if these fights are brought forward, I'll take it.
David, everybody's talking about Moses Itauma.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about him. He's the man of the moment. Just a boy. He's 20. You're what, 28?
Yeah.
But what do you really think of him? What do you see when you look at Itauma and the job that he did, albeit on Dillian Whyte, an aging Dillian Whyte?
Good performance. You know, it was old Dillian Whyte. I think it was half the Dillian Whyte, or like a shell of what he really is. But at the same time, you can't take nothing away from Moses because he did what he needed to do and beat the man in front of him. Did it in spectacular fashion as well.
Do you feel that we're in the changing of the times with these heavyweights now? Obviously, Tyson Fury, whether he's going to fight again, he may have one more. Anthony Joshua's at that stage as well. They're all in the twilight of their careers there, you know. And do you feel that now we're on the changing with times and there's young guys coming through?
Yeah.
But obviously, you need those dance partners and you need a few of those others
100%.
to come through as well.
Yeah, 100%. You know, British boxing is at an all-time high right now, especially for the heavyweights. You know, there's so many competitors, European boxing, you know, international boxing is at all-time high, and obviously the people at the top of the tree are starting to sail off into the sunset. Nobody knows what Usyk's going to do. You've got Tyson and obviously AJ focused on each other.
We spoke to Dubois this morning. He's working on a variety of things, and he'll be back.
Yeah, so look, boxing looks good right now.
Dubois and you, is that a fight you'd fancy?
Yeah, I'd love that fight. You know, that's a good fight. Me and Dubois used to swallow each other a lot in the gym, so I think the fans will be in for a real treat there. And yeah, if you want to see a real shootout, yeah, get me in the bar ring.
You got a little smile on your face. You fancy that one, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
You've seen Itauma. We all saw what he did at the weekend. Yeah. You've just come off the back of fighting Hrgovic.
Yeah.
If it's Hrgovic Itauma, what would we see there?
Good question. Depends on, look, Hrgovic is a very good opponent. You know, I just think if you use your feet against Hrgovic and your movement, then you can get the job done. You know, which is what Itauma does. It just depends on if the pressure might be too much for Itauma. We'll have to see.
And what about Hrgovic cuts? Do you think that they will hold up? Because you hit him with a jab in round two, and that opened up from corner to corner of his eyelid.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a problem.
Thanks, you're just rubbing it in, mate.
You
keep reminding me.
I'm gonna keep reminding you, mate, until you get it right. I'm gonna keep reminding you.
No, fair play.
Yeah, but that was that's an old cut that opened up again. Do you think that's going to be a problem moving forward for Hrgovic?
Yeah, depending on the sort of people he gets in there with. You know, certain people have sharp power where they get hit with certain shots that are sharp, and them sort of punches there can open up cuts and cut the skin. And you've got other people that got like sort of blunt power, or kind of just bruise people. So it depends, because obviously the shot that cut Hrgovic was a sharp jab, and I think that's why it cut him up so badly, because the shot was actually sharp. You know, when I was hitting him with sort of like more of the blunt ones, they didn't cut him. So yeah, it depends, but at the same time, it's going to be detrimental to his career moving forward, Hrgovic, because of his scar tissue over his eye.
Talk of, and I'll put this to the three of you, Gervonta Tank Davis going in next against Jake Paul.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean,
Gervonta,
you got the boxer, you got the YouTuber. Jake Paul rails against that kind of talk.
Gervonta Davis was going to be fighting Anthony Joshua, I think, down to broadcast deals. One's with obviously DAZN, the other one's with Netflix. The fight has broken down. That's not happening. So we hear now that Gervonta Tank Davis, who, by the way, is one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world, is 135 pounds. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He's 5'5". He's my height. He's talking about fighting. Jake Paul now calls him out and says, this is the fight that's happening, by the way, November the 15th in Atlanta against Jake Paul, 6'1" and 200 pounds. You just go, what is going on here, mate? And by the way, if Jake Paul loses to Gervonta Davis, that shuts down everything, because you go, don't forget how good he is as a fighter. He's 135 pounds. He's a lightweight against a cruiserweight. Yep. Only in this world could that happen right now. That's crazy, man.
Do you scratch your head when you hear things like that, David?
Yeah, it's funny, but I want to hear Simon's opinion, because I know he's obviously got a lot to say. But for me, it was like they spoke about it beforehand, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen. And for it to obviously come to fruition is a bit.
You think it's going to happen, Spence?
It is happening. It's done. It's an exhibition. It's happening. They've announced it November the 15th in Atlanta. Yeah, but my point is, Simon, how do you go from potentially fighting Anthony Joshua, an active current two-time world heavyweight champion, to Gervonta Davis?
Yeah, like you said, somebody's 6'6", the other one's 5'5". Somebody weighs 115 kilo, the other one weighs about 60.
Well, easy, because you've got people's attention. And it's all about attention.
It's a nonsense, isn't it?
I suppose the next question is, would
Gervonta
you
Davis? No, I wouldn't. It's a load of old fanny. I don't want to watch it. But Gervonta Davis is a world-class operator. He shouldn't want to be anywhere near it. But the actual rewards for him are going to be so significant, because this kid brings along a YouTube viewing.
.5's not a midget, mate. That's my height.
It will get a huge audience.
Mental
We'll finish on this. David, when are you back? When do you think? What sort of time scale are we talking about?
So it'll be in either October, November, December. I'm staying in the gym. I'm staying active. I got to right them wrongs. I got to do certain things. Yeah. And I think you guys are gonna see a new and improved Adelaye. I don't want to talk too much. I'd rather you guys just see it. But yeah, trust me, Adelai's gonna be one of the most active heavyweight punchers in the division. Yeah. How many punches I'm going to be throwing in my next fight per round? It's going to be frightening.
Look forward to it. Anything happens in the fight game, Gervonta Davis against Jake Paul, why don't you fight Simon? That would be great. That would get
Simon on the same page, man. I like Simon.
I want to get back Daniel gym, mate, because I rather like them boots. Them boots were nice. I look quite
Simon, you guys should come down. You guys are all welcome.
Oh yeah.
I want you guys to see how
where's the gym?
Next fight in Surrey.
In Surrey. Yeah. We'll be there. David Adelaye, thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime, this Thursday lunchtime live in talkSPORT. We're coming up to 1.